Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with you all. We always begin with one of the questions that come in from our family from all over the world who join us online. And then we open it up to any questions that anybody here has. There's a microphone right here, so if you have any question, feel free to just come to the microphone, share your name, share where you're from, and share your question. But first we start with one that's come in advance. As I followed the religion that I grew up with, I had my children take sacraments, go through the rituals in that religion. But since I began my spiritual journey, I no longer agree with the idea that we are all sinners and that we need to be fixed because we are imperfect. What should I do, since I want my children to learn what perfect divine beings they are? This is asked by our sister Marcia. Ideally, religion is that which should make us spiritual. Religion is that which should connect us. Sadly, a lot of times religion gets used to make us feel guilty and awful about ourselves, and you're wrong and you're bad and you're this and you're that. And this is one of the things that for me has been so deeply impactful about the teachings of Sanatana Dharma, the teachings of the Vedic tradition, is it's all in this idea that we are perfect. Not our bodies, not our habits, not our human karmic journeys, but the very nature of who we are, that is soul, that is spirit, that is divine, is perfect. The only thing that isn't perfect is we don't realize that we are perfect, and so we identify with that which is imperfect, always changing, the body, the story, the brain, the mind, habits. And so we forget that we're perfect. We believe in original divinity, not original sin. And I think in many ways, with all deep reverence and love for organized religion, I think it's perhaps one of the most healthy ways to raise children is through this very, very spiritual teaching, whatever religious background you may come from, of the inherent perfection of each of us. And I'm not a scholar of any religion, but particularly the Judeo-Christian religion. So I don't know exactly how you would be able to weave that perfection into the teachings as they exist, but I've got faith that there must be a way. I've got faith that if you have a deep, real connection with the divine in any religion, in any walk of life, that ultimately it's all going to take you to that same place, which isn't about sin and badness, but is actually about divinity. And so it's wonderful that you're wanting to raise your kids like this. This is beautiful. Whatever religion you've been raised in, whatever religion you've been raising your kids in, no problem. No problem at all. You don't have to change their religion. But just remind them that who they are isn't separate from the divine. That who they are is one with the divine. That when they make mistakes, it's just because they forget. It's not that it's divine that they, hit their brother or sister or tripped them or stole their things or ate all of the cookies out of the cookie jar. It's not that. But it's the way and the reason that we make mistakes is because we forget that we are divine. We forget that we're whole. We forget all of that. And so when we then get caught up in desire, in fear, in competition, in yearning, in not enoughness, we do things that we end up later calling sins or mistakes or whatever it may be, wrong, bad. But it's not who we are. It's just the actions that arose out of ignorance and forgetting. So if you can help your kids understand that, it's probably the very best gift that you can give your kids. And it's just in order to give it to them, you just have to stay anchored in that. You have to remember it. Because as a parent, it's so hard not to lose your temper. It's so hard not to say sometimes, you're bad, you're this, you're that. And so it's actually a very powerful spiritual practice for parents to continually and constantly see their children, to reflect that. Because if you say one thing but you treat them in a different way, kids are smart. They're not nearly as absent as we think they are. So many times we say, "Wo to koi baat nahi, wo to bacha hai, he doesn't know anything, he's just a kid." They pick it all up. Just because they can't articulate it doesn't mean they haven't picked it up. They pick it all up. So as a parent, your spiritual challenge is to see your child, who you may want to strangle in that moment because of what they've done, to see them as divine. Punish the behavior if you need to punish the behavior. It's how we discipline, it's how we teach. But never let them think that you have started to see them as their actions, that you've started to see them as their bodies or their habits or their mistakes, because then they'll see themselves like that. So if you lay ground rules about chores they have to do, rooms that have to be kept clean, grades they have to get, homework they have to do, if they break it, by all means, punish them. No dessert, no parties, no extracurricular this or that, no problem. But never, ever, ever tell them through your words or through your actions that you are wrong, that you are bad, that you are somehow anything other than divine and whole and perfect. Even with a messy room, even with nothing but fail marks on a report card, even with chores undone, a beaten up sibling, windows broken with a baseball, whatever it may be. Bring some discipline in, but not because they are wrong or a sinner, but just because they need to refine their actions. And in drawing the distinction here, not only is it the best thing you can do for your kids, but it's the most incredible habit you can give yourself, because what you do with your children then, you'll learn to do with each other, with your spouses. You'll learn to do it with people in your office, people in your company, people in your neighborhood. And you'll start to see people as separate from their actions. So instead of saying this person is awful or obnoxious or rude or stupid or this or that, you'll see them all as divine. And you'll just see actions that you like, actions that you don't, actions that you want to be near, actions you don't want to be near, actions you want to reward, actions you don't want to reward. But you won't see the people as wrong. And so that inner fire of I hate you, it won't be there. Because you won't hate anyone. You won't be able to hate anyone. Because you'll see them all as divine. So yeah, Marcia, thank you so much for the beautiful question. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful and powerful, challenging, but so important path. Other questions? Yeah, of course. Come.
Thank you, Sadhviji. My name is Jared. I'm from the States. I just finished yoga teacher training, and I think this actually is my last night in Rishikesh. And I want to be a teacher, and I want to carry the teachings and all the beauty that I've learned here from Ganga, from you, from everyone. And I'm wondering, what's the best way to do that?
Beautiful. We can only really give someone what we have. Do not think that the lessons you've learned, the techniques you've learned, are that which are actually that which you can teach in a way that will have a power to really transform people. Then all you are is a 3D YouTube video. I mean, because these days you can learn it all online. If you're really going to teach somebody something, it has to be something that you have. Not just a technique, not a tool, not a piece of knowledge or information or a quote, but an understanding and experience, a light. A lit candle is the only one that can light other candles. You can have the most beautiful candle in the world, but if it's not lit, it's useless. Neither can it bring you light, nor can it bring light to others. The best way to be a powerful teacher is to work on yourself. Then whatever you have will emanate out. You'll share it automatically. So make sure that you keep working on yourself, that you keep removing layer after layer after layer of ignorance. My personal prayer every day is just, oh God, empty me. Just empty me. More and more and more empty me. Empty me of all of the ignorance, all of the attachments, all of the ways that I think things should be. Because slowly you realize those are the obstacles. The obstacles are not outside. The obstacles are in your mind. And as long as I'm stuck in a way of thinking that you are the problem, or they are the problem, or this is the problem, or that is the problem, then I stay stuck. The only way to have anything worth sharing is to create space within you so that that presence of divinity flows in. It's always there, as I was saying in the Arati, the sun is shining, but if your windows are closed and your curtains are closed and you're inside, you don't benefit. Die of, vitamin D deficiencies. Sun is there, and you're going to die of darkness. And the solution to it is not about more Surya Namaskars or more prayers to the sun. The solution is just make sure to open the curtains, open the windows. Walk into it. And in the same way, if we can let go of the metaphoric curtains inside of us that are keeping us inside. Our whole perceptions, our dramas, our narratives, our stories, they're literally these curtains that block us from being able to see and live in light and truth. So just allow yourself in your practice every day, because oh my God, ignorance and ego are so insidious, they will bite you in the rear end when you're not even looking. You will think that you are free, and you won't even feel it bite you. It's a daily practice of let go, clearing that vision, clearing that vision, clearing that vision, so that you can see. And then what you're going to give people is not just a teaching, but an experience. And the last part is recognize that as a teacher of yoga, you represent not just exercises, even though there certainly are people who come to yoga class looking to just get fit. That's because their vision is cloudy. You are not an aerobics instructor. You are not a weight trainer at the gym. You are a representative of a system of dharma. And that's a huge opportunity. It's also a huge responsibility. Because what it means is people are getting from you, not just, oh, straighten your leg here, bend it there, hold this a little more. But what they're getting from you is, what does dharma look like? Personified. What does yoga look like? Personified. And that's a weight to carry. But it's an extraordinary weight, and it's an exquisite weight. It's a very, very beautiful opportunity. But be aware of that in your life. And as you're moving through your day, ask yourself, is this what yoga in action looks like? Is this what dharma looks like? You may just be grocery shopping. You may be just hanging out with friends over a cup of tea. Doesn't mean you can't have fun, doesn't mean you can't let loose and relax, doesn't mean any of that. But it just means that in every moment, you are there not just as you, random individual. You are there as a representative of yoga. And that which you do informs how people think about yoga and about dharma. And so be really, really clear on that. And what you'll find is that yoga then really starts pervading every minute of your day. Because as you start moving through the world with that, then not only is it an identity, but it becomes an intention. It becomes a focus in the mind all the time. And you'll find in every minute, every moment, ways. Oh yeah, here's where, I can bring ahimsa, or satya, into this moment. Here's Ishwar Pranidhana, just, here's how to bring this in. All right, I'm going to anchor in my breath here. And you just find every minute gives you an opportunity, or to practice bhakti yoga. Oh, here's an opportunity for jnana yoga. I need some clarity here, some wisdom, some remembrance. Oh, this is not just me doing this. This is karma yoga. This isn't just a burden, an annoying chore. This is karma yoga. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing practice. And your whole life will change. And then what you will be able to offer people is a way of thinking and a way of living. They do for a few minutes a day. Yeah, absolutely. Keep coming back and charging your batteries.
Satnam, my name is Doreen from the US. So I want to divide the question into two.
Okay.
One is more of a collective question, one is more of a personal for you. On a collective level, what would you say to people that are suffering deeply, that are in pain and sorrow, as we sit here today, people that are living in a country that's at war, For example, their loved one is held hostage, suffering deeply, starving.
Yeah.
Or they have a child that went to a music festival to dance, to a freedom festival, and was murdered horrendously. What would you tell these people in terms of their relationship with the divine? What is their lesson? How can they connect to their infinite self on a daily basis? And part 2 for you.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason that you were born into a certain religion? That you were raised in a certain religion? Is there a reason from the divine that you're in this world, in this lifetime, you were born into a certain religion? Do you have to do something with that, or?
Okay, yeah. I'm going to take your second question first and your first question second.
Sure.
Is there a reason that people are born in a certain region or area, in a certain religious background, in a certain situation where they're going to experience certain things? In the Vedic tradition, we believe in the law of karma. But it's really important to understand, as I always say, but it bears repeating, that karma is not a system of rewards and punishments. No one is being punished. It's not, oh, you were born in this part of the world where food is very scarce and you have to walk 5 miles to get a bucket of water, and that is because you are being punished. Or you were born in this area that is at war, and you grow up hiding from missile strikes. That's because you're being punished. No. It is not a system of rewards and punishments. It is a complex system in which our previous actions, earlier in this life, in past lives, bring us into what is considered to be the most conducive situation for us to take our next step forward closer to the divine. For some people, that next step is going to come in circumstance A. For some people, it's going to come in circumstance B. For some people, it's going to come in circumstance C. It's not, oh, the rich people are being rewarded, the poor people are being punished. Healthy ones are being rewarded, sick ones are being punished. No. If that were true, look at, so many of our enlightened masters. Swami Vivekananda died at 40, barely. Paramahansa Ramakrishna died of throat cancer. There's so many stories of these enlightened masters suffering early death. They're not being punished. What it is in this complex tapestry in which past actions are threads that weave together, the collection of past actions has brought us into the current situation, including the ultimate goal, which is not just you reap what you sow. It's not just that. It's with the ultimate goal that each of us should recognize the presence of the divine, that we should have that ultimate goal of self-realization, God-realization, enlightenment, moksha. That's the universe's ultimate agenda for us. And so we are given circumstances, situations, experiences, challenges that are those that are A, in response to actions from our past going back as many lifetimes as we've had, plus the lessons that we need to learn and the situations that will be most conducive for us to learn those lessons. Those two things combined are what put us in the situation where we are. So that's what we believe. But in cases like this, and especially given the examples that you've given, I also believe that there's a third aspect to karma. I believe that sometimes when people are in horrific situations, especially when they're in a situation that is so full of suffering, and frequently when they're in those situations collectively, you think about things like 9/11, you think about things like the Holocaust, you think about situations like that where you have huge numbers of people who together are going through unthinkable experiences. And I believe that in addition to the first two aspects, that there are times in which, on some level, and I couldn't tell you exactly how it works, but I believe deeply, on some level, those individual souls, what we speak of as Jiva Atma, take somehow some kind of a collective pledge offering of the self. The Sanskrit word is ahuti, an offering that you know, when we do the yagna, we actually place these ahutis in the fire we offer. And I believe that there are jivatmas that offer, in some cosmic way, an individual incarnation. Not because it was just a sum total of what they did, not just because it was going to teach them soul-level lessons, but because they've agreed to be part of an event that humanity can't ignore. And it causes a ripple impact on humanity for the better. Because when things like this happen, even if not immediately, eventually, if we are going to survive as a species, the lessons that we take have to be lessons of a whole new way of doing things. The ripple impact of pain is such that it leads to, hopefully, new ways of thinking, seeing, living. So that's the second question. The first question, what do you say to people?
What's their lesson, you think, for people that are in...
I'm sorry?
What's the lesson?
Yeah, the lesson. What would you say to people who are in that circumstance? Well, I think the first piece I would say is just that we're all with you. That it's not necessarily simply an individual lesson, but through you, on some level that you may not even be consciously aware, you have agreed to be part of a situation that is teaching the world a lesson. Maybe, hopefully. Yes, of course, there are lessons and teachings around us not being the body, of no one actually dying, of us being that which isn't born, which doesn't change, which doesn't die. And yet, there are moments in which those lessons feel like perhaps they could have been learned in somewhat less painful ways, somewhat less awful ways. And so I think, to me, what the most important thing to say is we are with you. If there were on any level, in any way, anything that any of us could do to make that situation different, we would do it. One of the things that arises in satsang so frequently, especially since October 7th, but even prior to that with other things in the world, is people feeling angry, distressed, unable to sleep, unable to concentrate. Not people who are living there, but people who are actually living in not war zones, but who are so impacted by what's happening that they're unable to find peace in their life. So this is something that lots of people are struggling with, and what we talk about all the time is, unfortunately, we do not have the actual ability, most of us, to bring about actual change on the ground there where we would like it to happen. And therefore, the only thing we can do is bring about healing and peace in the places where we do have the ability to bring it. And to not let ourselves sink into a despair of total hopelessness. Because even though we can't do anything about those children, there are children in the world who are suffering who we can do something about. So that, I think, is the lesson for the rest of us. But for those of you in that situation, I think it's a lesson in seemingly impossible resilience, in finding a strength that you probably never dreamed anyone had, especially you, of finding an inner resilience, of finding an inner ability to love and to forgive, even that which by every single objective measure is absolutely unforgivable, and yet which we are called upon to forgive, not to condone, not to forget, not to absolve, but just so that you are not also held hostage. Because that anger holds us hostage as well, and strangles us and suffocates us and kills us. And so I think it is a lesson in perhaps the most difficult lesson as human beings that we face, is the ability to find a place of forgiveness and of love in our hearts, even for that which truly is on every level unforgivable. There's a woman, I forget her last name, her first name is Scarlett, and her young child, 4 or 5 years old, was killed in a massacre in a kindergarten in the US many years ago. And she ended up forming an organization. I think it's called something like Choose Love. I mean, different circumstance, but the same experience of this loss of a child due to that which and I think that's the only lesson that I can think of, other than, of course, just the core spiritual lessons of We are not body, we are soul. And yet, along with that, here we are in bodies living out our karmic journeys. And all of those journeys have teachings and lessons and karmic packages that we're going through. And I think that what it means is that you've been given, I think, what could be considered the advanced course in forgiveness and in love.
You is who?
I'm sorry?
You is who? You is the Jewish people, or?
You collectively suffering in the Middle East right now. You as the Jews, you as the Muslims, you as the parents of those who were kidnapped from the music festival, you as the parents of those who were killed in retaliation. Because I don't think that a mother's pain has anything to do with religion. And I think that it's most definitely the advanced course of human life showing up to what really can only be thought of as a divine ability to love and to forgive. But know that if you've been given an experience, you've also been given the tools to walk through it. And those tools may be, partly some of those tools may be a collective community that is with you, to support you and be there. Those tools may be the ability to come to India, to come to the banks of Ganga, to find that healing. But what it also means, I think, is that you have a very powerful lesson, not just to learn, but to share. That on some soul level, you agreed to be put in the advanced class of this human experience. And I wish that I had a magic wand to change the situation. Just to know that through what you're going through, you have brought so many people together in solidarity all over the world. And to use that solidarity to help be an agent of peace. No matter how much we scream for revenge and we scream for, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But to help lead both sides. Help lead both sides toward an awareness that this is getting us nowhere.
Sometimes one side doesn't want. And you, as in on the person, part A of the question was, you born as from the Jewish faith. Do you think there's a reason that you came to this earth from the Jewish religion?
Well, I believe that there's a reason for everything. I definitely believe that there's a reason for everything. I think on a karmic, personal level, for me, it had to do, I think, a lot with bringing me to India. I mean, I'm really clear that being here and doing this is my dharma. Doing it in India and doing it abroad, but doing it with the experiences and the lessons that I've gotten here in India. And, I used to think, when I first came, I used to think, my God, it was such a mistake that I was born in America. I should have been born in India. How did I waste 25 years in America? And, that was a mistake. But I realized as the years went by that actually it was karmically perfect, because if I were a 25-year-old Indian young woman, there's no way that I could have made the decision that I made. Indian parents, Indian families have a lot more control over their children, even those who in the West we would consider full-blown adults in their 20s, but in Indian families they're still, kids. If my parents didn't want me to do this, there's no way I would have done it, because I was a good girl. And good girls do what their parents want them to do. And so I actually needed to be born in America. I needed to be born in a situation where I moved out of my parents' house at 17. I went off to college at 17. For 8 years, between 17 and 25, my parents had no say over whatever I did. I mean, it was the days before cell phones. I think we talked on the phone like once a week on Sunday evenings or something, for 10 minutes from my dorm room or something. But basically, they had no idea where I was, what I was doing. And so when I decided at 25 that I was coming to India, they couldn't go back to a place we had been in when I was 14 and suddenly say, oh, we're going to forbid you from going. They hadn't been running my life for almost a decade. And in the same way, I think, having been born and raised in a Jewish tradition, compared to, for example, a Christian tradition, which would have been the other big option in Caucasian American families in LA, I think that not being raised in a religion with a fear of an angry God who was going to somehow punish me or send me to hell gave me the spiritual religious freedom to open my heart and adopt a religious tradition that was so different than the one I was born and raised in. I think there is a reason that there is such a huge number of Western Jewish people who adopt Buddhism and Hinduism. And I think that one of the big reasons is because it isn't a religion that is taught with fear. It's not a religion that, at least in the way that I was raised, that says, if you do not accept God in this way, if you do not worship God in this way, you are going to suffer for eternity. That it gave me freedom to do this without fear. I never had a moment of like, oh my God, my Jewish God is going to be angry at me for worshiping God in the Hindu way. Never. There was never even an iota of that. And I think it's much more likely that if I were raised as a very strict Christian, particularly within certain lineages and traditions of Christianity, that I would have been much more concerned that I wasn't committing a sin or doing something wrong or angering God. So I think that having been born in America with the freedom that I had, the independence, the autonomy that I had, and having been born in a Jewish family probably were both really critical to enabling me to do something that otherwise seemed so completely crazy and so unexpected as to leave all of that behind and walk into this life. Yeah.
Just one last thing. In the morning, there was a beautiful ceremony with many little...
Can you speak just a little louder? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one more thing. In the ashram, I've seen many ceremonies, like in this morning, with the fire ceremony.
Yes, the yagna ceremony in the morning. Yes, yes.
The young boys, sweet boys. I was wondering to myself, where are the beautiful little girls? Why don't we see beautiful girls? We were talking about women's...
Yes.
Women.
Great.
Where are they?
Yeah, beautiful question. So, Pujya Swamiji has always been, long before I came here, long before I met him, he's always been deeply, deeply committed to girls, to women's empowerment, and was already running programs for women and for girls even before I came. And in fact had been wanting to expand this for girls. And in the very beginning, when we first opened it for boys, not long after, we actually brought in a group of, I can't remember how many, about 50 young orphaned girls. We brought them in from an orphanage in Delhi as kind of a trial run to see how it goes. And within less than 2 weeks, we had love notes tied to rocks and thrown through windows in the night between the boys' rooms and the girls' rooms. And we realized that we had to stop the experiment while it was still cute and innocent before it stopped being cute and innocent. And that having young girls in a place where not only did we have a whole bunch of young boys, but where the ashram is open. And when you're dealing with young girls who have been orphaned or who have been abandoned or who have been abused in some way, there's a vulnerability. I mean, everyone is vulnerable, but especially if they've already been traumatized, there is a vulnerability that really is our responsibility. You know, you take in kids, it's not your responsibility just to feed them and clothe them and put a roof over their head. But you better be prepared to be able to protect them on an emotional, psychological, mental level as well. And what we realized was, with the way that this ashram is set up, that we just were not logistically equipped to keep the girls as safe as we would like. We then had another piece of land not far from here in which we had all of the plans underway that we were actually opening a girls' orphanage there. It was about 8 kilometers from here through a jungle with wild elephants that we figured would be enough to deter a bunch of young boys. And so we were all set with plans to open it there, and then through a very, very unfortunate, long and complex situation, we ended up losing that piece of land and have not been able to get another piece of land there where we wanted to do it. But we have opened one in Delhi. So at our Delhi ashram, we have opened up a girls' gurukul. So if you go to our Delhi ashram, you will be greeted by a bunch of beautiful, beautiful young girls, and we're expanding that. Yeah.
Thank you for
Of
your
course.
time.
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Namaste.
Namaste.
My name is Zuili. I'm from Pune, Maharashtra. I have 2 questions for you as well. One is again a collective question. The other one is a little personal. I'd like to ask the personal one first. The personal one is that I often feel very lonely. I have a couple of friends. I have a great family. I have almost everything I need to basically survive and have a great job. But I feel very lonely. One of the main reasons being is because all of my friends are, married or have someone in their lives. I'm still single. I'm in my early 30s. So I often wonder that, will I ever get married? Because in India, not being married in your early 30s is something that's frowned upon, and and it's not like I care what people think, but often it scares me. So the future scares me a lot. And I have started losing my faith in God. I used to be extremely spiritual. I used to believe in God a lot. But then when I see that nothing seems to be working out, everything seems to be going downhill a lot of times, I just, I wonder if there is such a thing as God sometimes. I do know there is God, but I just wonder what's going on because nothing seems to be working out. So I feel very stuck because of that, and I can't live happily in my present, and I'm always worrying about the future. So that is something I wanted to ask you about. And the second thing is that, is everything truly pre-written, and are we are we in control of our destiny, or is everything already pre-decided for us the moment we are born till the point of our deaths?
Okay. So, when we don't have things in life that we believe on some level that we should have, it's very common to kind of take it out on God and to wonder whether God is there, to lose faith. And this is where it's so important, as I always say, to remember that, God is not a vending machine. God is not about fulfilling requests. It's not like God is there on some kind of a contract basis of, I'll be a good person and then you give me this. God just is. Just is. It's an isness, a divine isness, an omnipresent, eternal isness. Not a Santa Claus that, is either giving you what you want or not giving you what you want. If you find that you're wondering if God is there, ask yourself, where is it that I feel like God has let me down? Because very frequently when we go from being religious to not being religious, it's because there's some aspect of something that we were wanting, expecting, that we're not having. And therefore, it's kind of like the vending machine is broken. I pushed the button, I wanted this thing, but it's not coming, therefore the machine must be broken. Or in God's case, the machine doesn't exist at all. Go to God, not for what you want in life, but just for being with God. Just because being with God is ultimately the highest goal, because that means being with yourself. You can't know yourself and doubt God. Doubting God keeps you from knowing yourself. Because if God isn't there, you are just skin and bones. And so it's also a bit of a kind of spiritual defense mechanism that's keeping you from experiencing spirituality. That's keeping you blocked from spirituality. That's keeping you in the trappings of the mind and the ego. God doesn't exist. Life is just, I'm this sack of skin and bones, and, at some point it'll all be over. And it keeps you from the purpose of life. So don't let yourself go there. But ask yourself, what is it I thought God was going to give me that God hasn't given me, that I'm kind of holding this grudge against? And then just remember that that's not God's role. God isn't a vending machine. Being with God, uniting with God is its own reward. It's not a means to an end. And as far as the loneliness goes, it can absolutely be very lonely when you're not married and all your friends are, especially when you're young and people's marriages are new and they're having little kids and that's what they're all wrapped up with. Absolutely. This is where having a spiritual sangha is so important, of people who it's not just married couples and you're the odd person out, but actually a sangha of people who, some may be married, but some won't be, who come together for this spiritual purpose. And of course, you're always welcome to be here whenever you feel lonely. Come and be here. You'll find yourself amidst a whole bunch of unmarried people, happily unmarried people. So you're always welcome here. But just remember that if you're feeling lonely, rather than waiting for those people to fill your loneliness, ask yourself what you can do, how you can reach out to others. Old people, children, sick people, homeless people. Find people you can serve, and what you'll find is the loneliness disappears. In that connection, your loneliness will disappear. And then whenever it's there, just come and be with us here. And lastly, about the destiny, it's not all written when you're born. Not at all. A bit of it is written. It's how you get your horoscope. Can't be changed. It's based on the time and place of your birth. But all that is probabilities. It's just probabilities, tendencies, energetic tendencies. It is by no means a definite, this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. That's determined by our free will. How you use your free will in every moment is what's creating your destiny. Every choice you make today is creating your destiny for tomorrow and next year and next birth. So use that free will. Create the life that you want to live. That power is in your hands. But create it thoughtfully. Because a lot of times we think that all we want, for example, is we just want money, or we just want this success. So we put a lot of time and energy into that. And you realize at the end of the day that didn't actually get you what you were hoping it would. Ultimately what you were looking for was happiness. You were looking for meaning. You thought it would come with a whole bunch of money, but it didn't. And you've just spent years trying to get that so it would come. So think very carefully about what is actually your ultimate goal, what is actually that which you're yearning for. And as they say in mathematics, a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. So if what you're looking for is happiness, work on that. Don't go through a whole checkered of thinking, well, in order to be happy, I have to have this and this and this and this and that, and then ultimately maybe they will make me happy. Go for what is it that's going to bring you the deepest happiness. And lots and lots of science from a lot of years shows us that that happiness comes from divine connection. It comes from service. It comes from a spiritual practice. Much, much, much more than it comes from any amount of money or external success or anything like that. But figure out what it is you want. And then use your free will to create that.
I have just 2 quick other questions. Is that...
We're going to take your other questions tomorrow, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Perfect.
Thank you for your time.
Of course. And we will start tomorrow with your other questions.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world. And so much love to you all.